Coming up on OTH, Raymond and I discussed the LCS AD carry tier list, the TSM Peter Zhang special, as well as LCS Week 7. We hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Hunt. Welcome everybody to episode 50 ding 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 of On the Hunt, the League of Legends podcast. I'm your co-host Chris, aka Mr. Sweaty Boy, because dude, it's getting kind of hot where I live, and it's only like March.
Shit, dude, yeah, it was fucking hot here too today. I think it was like in the 90s.
Oh,
And I went outside today. It was wild.
never mind then. Yeah, I'll get home at like 5:30, and the sun is just beating on my room in the evenings.
Yeah.
So it feels like a sauna in here sometimes.
I think we are at that point of the year though where I can like leave a door or leave a window open while I'm sleeping, like in my room, and it's like not cold
I
out.
cannot, dude. Dude,
that.
I don't know why, but there's a train that I can hear that like it honks it, and it honks its horn, and like it doesn't seem to go away. Like the train stays in my area for some reason. It doesn't go anywhere. And then secondly, so that's at night, and then in the morning, there's all these birds that chirp at like 7 o'clock without fail. So I have to have my windows closed.
Isn't that just like nature's alarm though? You're basically like Snow White.
No, thanks, dude. I do not want to wake up to some cockadoodle-doos or anything like that. But our man on the other side of the microphone here and other side of the world is our other co-host, Raymond. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm not on the other side of the world. Come on, like we're not. It's not that crazy.
It feels like
but,
it, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know. Nothing weird going on for me. Just been playing a little bit of League. I watched. Have you heard of the show Severance? It's like on Apple TV.
I have not, but I do like Apple TV.
Yeah, I caught up to that show. It's like actually kind of fucking wild. It's like it's about where like there's this company where like you can work there, and during the day they like perform a surgery on your brain, so during the day you like don't remember anything about not work. So it's like that you basically have like a work person and a normal life person. It's like fucked up.
Oh, okay. I will say, modern day streaming services make it very difficult to screen share through Discord. And
Yeah,
I have learned that. Have you seen anything else on Apple TV, like any other shows? I've really only seen two, like The Morning Show and the TED show.
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso, yeah.
Damn, dude, how do you not know Ted Lasso is the name of the show?
It's been a while.
Yeah. I think I watched Mythic Quest on there too, which was okay. It's by like one of the It's Always Sunny guys.
Oh,
where
okay.
It's like a game dev, like they're following like a game dev company. That's kind of funny. I don't know. I think those are probably those four probably the only ones that I've seen from there.
Okay, I heard the one about space. I think it's called For All Mankind or something like that. I heard that one's pretty good.
Oh yeah.
I think they have 2 seasons now
good,
as well.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the first ones to come out on Apple TV, one of the originals. And then I heard the one with Jason Momoa. What's his name? The Aquaman?
Oh, the C one? Momoa?
Yes, I heard that one is good as well from one person. So, I guess to be determined.
Oh, I watched Foundation. That was on Apple TV too. I
Okay.
like that, but it was a little fun. Like, I wouldn't say it's like an amazing show, but it was fun to watch.
Yeah, so they have some good stuff on there, but I have not checked it out. The thing is I'm pretty soft on hour-long shows for like the last couple of years, where unfortunately I just do not have the attention span to sit down and look at the TV for that long.
Yeah.
But
it's like you can't convince your brain that like this isn't Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Fucking worth the grind.
I just have like
It's
super
only an hour.
dopamine crackhead mentality of like I could go have fun doing this right now for the entire time, instead of having to get through some slow parts of a TV show or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm definitely a crackhead in some aspects. Speaking of which, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know how that's gonna.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I don't know how that's gonna lead into anything, but we're here for League of Legends. Let's start on some good news first before we walk down some dark alleys, possibly. Over in the LCK, Organization T1 with Faker and 4 Zoomers has successfully gone undefeated in matches, a full 18-0, which is really cool because I don't know if that's ever been done before. And then secondly is what I meant to say. A lot of teams have been playing with substitutes because there's a lot of COVID situations going on with the organizations and players over on that side. And for the last couple of weeks, there have been some things where if you do have COVID, then you just can't play because they have required the LCK teams to continue to play in person and not at home. So, what do you think on that whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I know that they did come out with announcement that they would have a way for teams to have players play from home during playoffs.
Correct.
Um, yeah, so like I don't know, I think it's sweet that T1 went 18-0. That's the big thing. I don't know, like it's been a like crazy dominant season from them. Even like playing against some I feel like they only had like one game where it was like really mattered that they played against subs. It was like they had a Genji matchup where like Chovy was out, maybe one other player too.
Some people, yeah.
Um, yeah, like that one felt like it kind of blew, seeing as it was a like really hype matchup going into it. But like they've just played so well that I really don't think it like mattered. They've just been like super crazy Korean T1 powerhouse.
Yeah, and from what I've been hearing, they also played another team that was just full of subs, and they two of them in like less than 20 minutes in both games. So in
Yeah.
either case, I'm really excited to see this team moving forward into MSI, and I'm sure the whole world loves that as well. And they've got a great squad going on there,
Yeah, definitely will be interesting to see how fast they speedrun MSI.
which is to be held in Korea apparently. So yeah, that'll be super cool. The next thing that'd be cool for us to talk about is the AD carry tier list that went out on the broadcast this past weekend. And then just for fun, I'll provide the Doublelift version here as well, which is deleted all of a sudden. Let
Yeah, I
me
was gonna say I don't think your link worked,
wait.
but
What? Hmm. Okay, maybe.
there you go.
Okay, just copied up, pasted a picture in there. So, um, let's just talk about the top five for each of these listings here. So we have Raz with number one Hansama, number two Berserker, three Danny, Neo, and FBI. Notably, Neo is out of place in his list. For Jat, it's Hansama, Berserker, FBI, Danny, and Luger. For Kobe, it was Hansama, Berserker, FBI, Danny, and Luger. And then lastly, for Doublelift, he put Berserker, Hansama, FBI, Danny, a couple of people in between 4 and 5, including Sven. And then for fifth place, he also put Luger. So a couple of findings here is that um, there's a lot of mainstays here for Hansama, Berserker, Danny, and FBI and Luger for people's top fives. And what do you think of that so far?
Yeah, I mean it seems like about what I'd put going off this split basically. I think I'm probably more with Doublelift about the Berserker point. Like being the number one. I think that it's probably hard to make the definitive like yes on that, but I think Berserker being like this is this rookie year kind of in pro league or at the highest level, and Hans being on like the team that he is like
Sure.
there's a lot less that Hansama has to do when you're playing like with Core JJ and Bwebo and Bjergsen,
Sure.
and also like even Santorin, like somebody who is like a hardcore like ginks for your lanes, right? Like that's like such an easy situation for him to be in, kind of that. I feel like we haven't even seen like really good Hans Sama this split, and we've seen a little bit more of that from Berserker, like some pop off moments and like a lot of the versatility, like playing Karthus and stuff. Also, so I'm more on that side.
Yeah, and when I see Berserker, I mean, I wouldn't be able to determine, who's better between Berserker and Hansama, but when I see Berserker get Jinx or Aphelios, I pretty much feel like the game is over. It's like one of those champions or one of those like you can't let a Korean AD carry get like these champions, you know.
Yeah, kind of true, kind of true.
Um,
What do you think about the FBI placement? I feel like FBI is. I think he's coasting a little bit off like last year's performance. I feel like the split has been especially kind of bad for him.
I'm pretty much I'm a little with you with that. Yeah, he's pretty high up for Jat and Kobe's, and even Doublelift with third place. Where yeah, it does seem like that's a bit of his historical performance, and not so much reflective of his current split. And I was actually going to ask you the same thing about Luger. I'm pretty surprised to see Luger at the halfway mark for pretty much everyone. Do you think that he's really showing up for his first split as well?
That I think so. I think it's probably recency bias too, but I think Luger is probably more likely to be if you were going like just this split, I think he's more likely to be higher than even like the number five. Like I think you could argue him over like FBI and Danny.
Oh, okay.
Uh, but but part of that's been like he's been on CLG too, so it's harder to show off. It's like it's similar to like Tactical. Like I think Tactical and Luger both have had like pretty shining moments. Luger's probably had less low lows than Tactical has, but they're just on like clearly worse teams than the other guys. Danny, I think, has been like one of the better like Zeris this split, and also he had like last year's or I guess last splits like kind of pop off. So I think he's like a little bit of that is like that like his highs are carrying him there. But
Yeah.
I would say that I haven't been too impressed by his like current split, other than like a few of the Zeri games where he's like seriously popped off on that champ.
For Danny or for Luger?
For Danny,
Oh,
I
okay.
think Luger, I think Luger like from everything I've heard about Luger like being like when he was on 100 Thieves Academy and that stuff, like I think that he is probably like really really good, and we just haven't seen enough of him to put him like really higher than fifth, especially on a team that's been underperforming like CLG. So like give him some time and he could easily be like a top three, I think.
Sounds good, man. We'll hope to see. We've had a lot of people, or a lot of AD carries in particular, who seem to have really decent first splits. You know, Johnson, even some people on this list, Johnson, Neo, um, Stixay. Like it just comes back in history to for me to think about like a lot of people who did pretty well in their first split actually, and then even tactical. And well, it's just to see how they're gonna do moving forward as well.
Yeah, definitely definitely true. It is kind of surprising how many people are on this list that are like new players. I feel like ADC for a long time was like especially in NA was like kind of dominated by, the sneaky, the double lift, the Sven, and like just a lot of like old timey AD carries that were like consistently at the top. And now it's like kind of been a changing of the guard. I think Hansama is like you have Hansama and then like Arrow um and Wild Turtle when whichever one of them is playing for Immortals, right? That are like kind of the old ones now. And even Hans isn't that old.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like Hans is one of, if not the longest playing players on this list. Maybe FBI if you count his like time before NA, um, might be up there. Actually, no. Yeah, I feel like Hansama has been playing for way longer than anyone else here, but he is number one on many of the casters list.
Yeah, I do kind of like double of list here. I like his radical different placements for tactical, just like all over the board, whether it's good mental tactical, bad mental tactical, or normal tactical.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, and I like that he also included Wild Turtle as well as Sven, both not playing in the LCS at this time, but good to mention with regards to like, they could be slotted in. They're on the academy teams, or they're part of the team, the organizations and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot. Like that's it's a good point from Doublelift because I think that he's like clearly the like giving the veteran mind like position of all that stuff. Like it's easy to look at AD carries and just like see good hands moments. Like the Danny like Tristana Pentakill like team fight or whatever that was last year. You see Berserker doing things, you see Hansama winning lane, that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh man, these guys are fucking good. But like Doublelift is like as someone who plays so many of those games against them and like is on his own a like high tier player, I think you get more of the impression of like, can these guys play the fucking game outside of, just like can use Jinx and get pentakills. Like that's easy at that level of play. So I always like his shoutouts of Sneaky and like Turtle and Sven as being like the only people that like had like would challenge him on like the tactical parts of playing ADC, of like, the back timings and always making sure you have the better buy and those kind of things. So it's cool to see how he slots them into comparison against the current pros.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised of how highly Doublelift talks, how highly he talks of Sneaky. I don't know if that's because he's been hanging out with him a lot more frequently over the last like year or so. But he tends to like look back on Sneaky's performance throughout the years as like very, very high up there.
Yeah, and I think that he's always talked about whatever Doublelift has talked about Sneaky's performance has always been prefaced by like, man, he has played with some bad supports, like in terms of like actually like laning with him and everything, like Levitt Nation was the original, like he has a notebook, like he's basically coaching, but he just has to play support, right? And then he had Smoothie, who has proven to, not be that great of a player outside of like the couple C9 splits. Then Zazel, who's also another example of someone who came in like kind of as a hyped rookie and is now, not in LCS. Like he's gone through a lot. Like during Sneaky's career, he went through a lot of players that weren't top tier supports, kind of, more were carried by the C9 team as a whole. So I think a lot of that goes into what Double's, perception of it is, and especially, I mean, Sneaky's a world semifinalist. The only world semifinalist ADC from NA. So think about that.
Yeah, the one time they ever did it, or we've ever done it. Yeah.
True, true, true.
All right. I thought that'd be a little bit of fun. Now let's get into the meaty topic of this week, which would be um, a surprise statement really out of nowhere 4 days ago, where TSM FTX puts out a statement on Twitter saying that they're made aware of very serious allegations of conflict of interest with involving their coach Peter Zhang, who is their LCS Academy coach. And after an initial investigation, they have terminated him effective immediately, and also performing a full investigation. And then with regards to the timeline of a couple of things, there was a pretty quick follow-up where in the Reddit thread of this, news on the League of Legends subreddit, the commissioner commented in there saying this has nothing to do with match fixing, and she said that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people came out as that was like the expected cause of the firing, the release of Peter. I think it was because so many so many other coaches or players have been in like that kind of scandal from LPL or like lower leagues LPL.
Yeah.
Just like it's kind of notorious there. So one, TSM was fucking blowing, so it's easy to somehow pin that on Peter Zhang, I guess. And then two, it's something that people from China have also been victim of before. So
Yeah, the worst part is it's definitely a consideration, and you just don't know until an investigation is thoroughly done. So I would consider, yeah, I would consider it a possibility. And then
I
go
I
ahead.
wonder that though, like what I mean, the only thing that he really could have gotten canned for, right, is if he was like betting on matches that somehow he had inside info. Like there's no way that like he's the cat, like I mean he was director of esports or some like player development, right? He wasn't an academy coach this year, but there's no way that he like actually is sabotaging the LCS team or something, right?
Well,
He does not have that power.
I would say let's get into the next part, which would be the Dexerto article written by Richard Lewis, that dives a little bit deeper into everything that's going on and really provides most of the information that is known on the subject at this time, and even has a bit in which he had interviewed Peter Zhang as well and gotten his take on the story. So um, it's it's got a lot of information in here that's really good for if you're interested in knowing more about it. But I'll just go ahead and read the opening paragraph. Restating that TSM fired their head of player development, Peter Zhang, on March 19th, citing serious allegations of conflict of interest. And sources have since told him that the reasons behind his Peter Zhang's dismissal came from an agent-style setup where he would secure Chinese and Taiwanese players spots on the team for a cut of earnings. So essentially, Peter Zhang was acting as some sort of agent in an agent-style manner for Eastern players to get a spot on TSM, and Peter Zhang would take a cut of their the deal for that. And there's a whole lot of more information about this so far, but you said that you had already gone through and read this article. What do you think of it thus far? Are you muted, my good sir?
Oh, I am muted. Sorry. Um, yeah, I think the funny thing about this article is kind of that like there's there's not drama around it. I don't think. Like I feel like everything that Richard Lewis talks about as like the allegations, and then the statement from Peter Zhang's that he included as well. Like it's kind of just like all out there in the open. There's not a lot left to like uncover. Um,
Right.
the stuff about the like agent stuff, I think it's even a little like shadier than just being like he acted as their agent and in negotiating a deal with TSM. It was more like he's involved in TSM scouting process, right? And then as like part of TSM, it's like his job to go and approach these players to join the team, and then it's like he acts as if he is negotiating from their point of view, like on to get into the team or as they're in, when it's like the team has already decided, hey, we want this guy. So you're taking advantage of both sides of the relationship, where like the player trusts that like you're doing them solid, and the team is trusting that you're just already doing your job. Um,
Right.
I think, yeah, I think Peter Zhang admitted only to like the way he said it is that he's taking part of your son's salary and just like being a middleman in terms of getting the money to his agent and like his own, I don't know, his bank back home or something, which sounds like pretty weird. I would say it's more likely that there is, something fishy going on than just what he said. But yeah, that part of it sounds pretty like damning. I would say that would be a large breach of trust. I would think from the organization's point of view.
Yeah, it's a pretty big breach of trust, and then there's also just so many other possibilities that could go on behind that with regards to how malicious could this have been, how long has this been going on, and really what else has he done? And not just with this, but he's been with the team for very long, and maybe this has only gone on in the last year or so. But what else? What kind of undertakings or dealings or influence has he had with regards to this player getting landed or that player getting placed onto TSM and so forth? One last thing that is spoken about in this Dexerto article here, and also is kind of going to segue us to Doublelift's take on the Peter Zhang situation, is that in addition to the agent kind of dealings, he was also asking a lot of people in TSM to lend him money, um, both players on the main and academy roster, and usually asking them for a pretty significant amount of money. Doublelift was saying that Peter Zhang asked him for 70 grand, and that some other people he might have asked for 200,000, and that sometimes the reasons that he would tell one person or another would be different. For example, the Dexerto article claims that this is for a medical emergency involving his grandparents, and some for other people he'll tell them something else, like it's for a stem cell surgery that's that somebody needs, for, so on and etc. So there's a lot to this situation so far that is pretty weird, but also I don't know how much trouble he could get into other than like him losing his job. And it from also what I've heard listening to this bit of the Four Horsemen where they're talking about this situation more, is that Peter Zhang is not in the United States right now. He's already back in China. So I don't know what's going to go on from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of this sounds, especially, I mean, I don't know, the way that Peter has framed it, it sounds a lot like he's like this is like a cultural thing, or like people in China just like ask people for money all the time or whatever. Like that's his defense, and that sounds like, I mean, I don't know that about that culture, but I also don't know that technically it's not like he's wrong, right? Like he's just asking people for money, and that just sounds shady. Um, but
Yeah.
the I think the weird part about this too is that the original reason it got brought up, or like, because what I remember, I think I heard a little bit on Doublelift stream when he talked like briefly about it, was that like the asking for money from like people like TSM players right now is like a really recent event, and probably like why a lot of this got brought up. Like it's something to do with like in the article it talks about that SwordArt like bought a car while he was in the US, and is now like had asked Peter Zhang to sell it for him, like since he had gone back, and then like get the money to him. And so Peter Zhang sold the car and kept like the $80,000 from the sale of the car
Right.
for his own doings. And now that Sword Art has like come out to say like, give me the fucking money, guy, like he is having to recoup that through like these other loans from other players. So that's what's catalyzing everything going on, which is kind of wild. Again, more stuff that's like, if it was just an isolated incident, I would say, yeah, that's easy to say. It's some, cultural communication barrier kind of thing. But to do like so many different shady things, and like if Doublelift's right and he's giving different reasons for everything, it's like, guy, you can't just like try and pull one over on everybody. Like somebody's gonna figure it out.
Yeah, there's so many just different loops that he's involved in one end or another that it just really does not look good. Even if, one or two things could be reasonably explained away, there's another thing that's hanging down on him now that all of this is kind of coming out at once, that you're giving insight into. So pretty crazy story and drama, really just dropped out of nowhere over the last couple of days.
Yeah, it is. I think the one thing about this too, in regards to it being like it's almost funny that this is just like yet another TSM drama situation. But this one, of everything that's gone on with TSM, like this split, I feel like this is the least like TSM is at fault of any of it, right?
Yeah, funny enough.
Like it's maybe the like craziest of all the scenarios, but like it's really just Peter Zhang coming out as like kind of a untrustworthy individual, and it makes sense. Like I think, especially the legal implications of the like player agent stuff, that makes a lot of sense as being reason for firing. But everything else just sounds to me like, yeah, this guy is an untrustworthy individual, and I would not want him involved in an organization, if I had the choice. So
Yeah, I don't know if he'll ever, come back into the United States either. One interesting part, also cited in the Dexerto article, is that he does have a green card. And to my understanding, or according to the Four Horsemen, it is possible that there is a relationship between, the United States and the Chinese government for people who do have green cards, that there could be a form of cooperation by the, I don't know, the consulates or something like that, that could, force him to extradite extradite him and face, legal consequences, even though he's not in the United States anymore.
yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, at that point I have no expertise, so I will I will trust those that do.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to see, the follow up on this. I'm pretty sure that there will be a follow up, unlike some other dramas that have gone on so far this year. All right, now let's dig our toes into some LCS Week 7, where now there's only one not undefeated, one team in first place. And so I'll go ahead and run through the standings here. Well, I guess last week there was a team. Yeah, I'm tripping. Anyways, up in first place, we still have Cloud9, now at 12-3, having taken a loss this past weekend. Next up, we have Team Liquid, who had a chance to recoup their a tie for first place, but they also lost this weekend, so they're 11-4. Still at third place, we have 100 Thieves, who is on a fat win streak right now. Next up, we have FlyQuest at 8-7, still hanging around. You could say that the top end of the standings, so they're doing pretty well still. Next, we have Dignitas and Evil Geniuses and Golden Guardians at 7-8, 8th place, we have CLG at 5-10. And then in a surprise turn of events this past weekend, now we have a tie for 9th place with both Immortals and TSM at 4-11. So really interesting set of games this weekend from both, well, from all around the top of the standings, the bottom of the standings, and then just kind of some fun in that mismatch in the middle there. Where do you want to start?
Dude, we have to do it. I mean, I feel like I have to. I've kept trying to wean myself off of talking about TSM in our shows because they've just been fucking bad. But now they beat fucking C9.
Yeah,
They won a game. They won two
they had some
games.
banger games
It's
this weekend.
crazy. That's true. Like this weekend, this 2-0 is like the most unlikely 2-0 it feels like. That C9 game, I don't know. If you watch that, that was, I don't know how well, I know how TSM won it, and it was because C9 was mind controlled into just taking horrible play after horrible play. Summit looked out of himself completely. He was getting like hard camped by Spica and falling for it like all the time. There were a few team fights where they were just totally not on the same page. Like Summit is jumping in when he's still mini or jumping out as he's turning mega. Like, and the team just could not find any sort of momentum in the game. And TSM was just like they had all comfort picks. They were, like even or ahead for most of the game, and just could continue to roll through fights when C9 looked out of sorts. So that game was just almost unbelievable to me.
Yeah, that the C9 TSM game was very great. And then the follow up one was just as great as well, where at level 1, TSM versus Immortals. Immortals manages to kill Spica at level 1 when they catch him out in the river brush. And then they also kill him again before he can do his red buff because somehow mid lane Rise gets chunked out by Arrow on Ashe, also at level 1. And then that causes Power of Evil to be able to get a roam onto Spiga at his red buff and kill him. And then they take the red buff as well. So he just has the most absolutely like doomed early game. And then they manage to, and he's playing Jarvan, like of all champions. Like this is probably one of the worst starts that you could possibly have. And they end up actually having a really good turn of event. And also they got Dove at like their tier 2 tower at like less than 10 minutes into the game. So it just looked
Yeah,
overall
they
like,
lost like 3 kills. Oh, Cassio's like 5-0.
yeah,
It was just I think Power of Evil had an Everfrost at like 8 minutes into the game, just like walking back to
yeah,
lane.
just the most
What are you gonna do?
disturbing lead that almost makes you want to turn off the game because like there's nothing else to see here, dude. Like you should know how this turns out. But then all of a sudden, like TSM manages to fight back and they have a gold lead like before the 20-minute mark in the game again. So they somehow managed to turn that one around, and I would highly recommend that you go watch that game just for the crazy ups and downs that you have to go through of like, but Immortals can't throw this hard, right? And then
Right.
until you see like a stone plate on
At every turn.
Cassiopeia, and you're like, oh, okay, that might be how one way that they could lose.
Okay, is Stone Plate on Cassio really that bad? Can we talk about that? Like,
Sure.
I don't think that was the wrong thing. Like, I think a lot of people are. I think that point, like that item, was a bad point for Immortals, just because people like to flame PoE's builds when he builds like Leandry's Corki and shit like
Sometimes
that.
I'm just like, can somebody install Blitz on his computer, please? I'm just kidding.
But but Stoneplate of all things, like if you read the post match, or not, probably not the post match, that's probably where people are overreacting. There were a couple other threads that talked about like that buy in particular, and like that is something that like Challenger Cassiopeia's buy like third item pretty consistently, especially if you're ahead. Like it makes a lot of sense. You don't want to buy Zonias as your defensive thing because then that actually has to stop your DPS. Like you're a DPS champ, not a burst champ for most of the game.
Yeah,
Like I that part like makes a ton of sense to me, especially if you're the only like you're the only person getting focused, you're getting max value out of like its passive and everything too. Like I can see the logic behind that one. I think there are other reasons why Immortals lost that game, and it wasn't just like the Cassiopeia Stoneplate thing, you
you're
know?
right. I'm definitely on the era of the ragey fans.
All right, I just had to get that one out there because I didn't want people to be on Power of Evil's hate train just because of item builds. I think he trolled with the Zonias in a fight. Like, that one is fair, and I think that the rest of Immortals was just getting fucking gapped for no reason. Like I think what was crazy about that game is you see like this 5-0 Casio and you're thinking, Jesus, Immortals are just gonna run across the map and do whatever they want. That fight where they ended up getting a bunch of kills and diving the mid tower, that was like after TSM like stole a dragon like almost for free. It was like there was no contest kind of. They just like walked up, pushed Immortals away and stole it. And then they got chased down and blue flashes and whatever and a bunch of kills happened.
Yeah.
But like why were you giving up that dragon? Why were you not just posturing and pushing them out of it? The bot lane, the Ashe that was like, they were bullying people level one like in every other lane, but by the same like 15-minute mark, like Tactical had a huge CS lead and it only continued to grow like over Arrow on Ashe and like stuff like that just seemed like so weird on how that game got out of hand. But it in a way it felt like TSM never really was that in danger. Besides, like Spica got absolutely shafted early game, but even Takeover on Rise was like farming fine into this Casio that had a ton of items. They just couldn't translate it.
Yeah. Overall, an exciting game that I would actually consider watching again. It was that fun to me. But definitely, yeah, that C9 game and the Mortars game take up a lot of my memory of the weekend just because of, on two separate days, how exciting that they were. But were there any other matches that you wanted to discuss from this past week of games?
I'm trying to look back and see if I can like if I'm getting my memory jogged about anything. I don't know. We had TL lose to FlyQuest. That one actually I think felt like a pretty good win for FlyQuest. That was actually, yeah, that was a good game. That was Bwipo was playing Lucian into Kumos Gragas and just got super far ahead of the game. I think he was like 2,500 gold ahead of like anybody else in the game around the 15-minute mark, where they had just like constantly sent Bjergsen to roam the top, diving this Gragas and getting Lucian super far ahead. It looked like an unlosable game kind of from the TL perspective, just because of how strong you have of a carry.
Yeah.
But Flacos was playing this like kind of late game comp with Vigar and Tristana, and they just by the end of it, it just looked like real Afro Moonshot calling energy, where they just got into these weird ass scenarios. But Afro could just be like this, the calm herder of his people, and guiding them to the right way to win. Tukui kind of like popped off on the Vigar. It was just like too easy to shut down a lot of the like low range Lucian, that kind of stuff. I don't know. It was an interesting game for sure. Like that got into some weird late game scenarios that like you don't usually see in games, I feel like.
Yeah, and to my understanding, that was one of, if not like the only Tristana game played all split so far. So pretty cool to see that it gets a dub on that same game.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good, interesting pick into like the Zeri too. Like that's one that I've been playing a little bit. If I've seen him in normals, is trying to play some more Tristana. I think it works well. Like you get a lot of pressure in lane, is like with Halo Blades and stuff, to all in against Zeri if she ever like wastes E or isn't near a wall. So like it's an interesting pick for sure.
And then another thing that I think we should mention before we move on to anything else is that 100 Thieves is now 5-0 in their last 5 games, having now caught up to have a strong hold on the third place spot, and really looking to contest even the second or even first place spot, given that we have a super week approaching. So there's going to be 3 games. What do you think about 100 Thieves victories and like the last 5 games? Like they've had some pretty sketch wins, to be honest, among those 5. But what
Yeah.
do you think about their upsurge in the standings at least?
Yeah, I think I'm still not totally sold. I don't know. If you look back at their last 5 games, it's against, all those guys in the mishmash of people in the middle of the standings. So
Yeah,
like their games they should win, right? And I think that is what separates 100 Thieves like from that big clump of teams, is that they're probably good enough that they should win all those games. If you match up FlyQuest or Dignitas against EG or Golden Guardians, it's kind of a toss up. But if I'm putting 100 Thieves in that matchup against any of those 4 teams, it's probably 100 Thieves favored, even if it's not a ton, because they haven't had great form. But like at this point, you kind of just expect that 100 Thieves should win, given the caliber of their players and how long they've been together as a team. So it makes sense that they're here. but I still am not convinced that they're like that good of a team. Like I don't think they're as good as C9 or TL. And I think they play C9 this weekend on Saturday. So like that will be an interesting game for them. Like they play TSM on Friday, that should be a win, right? So you carry this like 6 game win streak into a match against C9. Then do you win that game? That's the question. And then if they don't win that game and it looks bad, then I'm back on the 100 Thieves is like not that good side.
Yeah, yeah. This weekend will be a good tell-all for their form moving into playoffs as well. And we'll see if they can get their groove back. Anything else about week 7 of the LCS before we give a preview of the next Super Week?
I think the last one I would say is just a shout out to Golden Guardians who went to this week. It's just like another resurgence kind of. They've been up and down all season. I feel like of having these like good weeks and bad weeks, but this one, another one of the good ones. I think they had good showings from Blaze Olive and like Licorice pulled out a Fiora against in the Tryndamere
Oh
matchup.
yeah, that was
So some
nasty to watch.
some hype games from them this weekend. I think that they're just kind of proving that they have some tricks up their sleeve and are an exciting team to watch. So hopefully, I'm rooting for them to be one of the teams that pulls into playoffs in that 5th or 6th spot.
Yeah, and I would even say that right now they're currently tied for 5th place with Dignitas. And next week, Dignitas is actually playing the teams in the top 3. So they actually got a match against Cloud9, Team Liquid, and 100 Thieves lined up for them next week. So it's possible that, with Dignitas playing against 3 teams higher than them in the standings, that gives the teams that they're tied with, Evil Geniuses and Golden Guardians, the opportunity to overcome Dignitas and possibly even push them out of top 6 contention.
Yeah, it's a big spot. It's a big week for those guys for sure.
Yeah, let's go ahead and give a preview of next week's games. Again, it is a super week, so taking place Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Let's start with Friday. Are there any exciting games that you're looking forward to?
I think we kind of already mentioned it, but the C900 Thieves one, that's a big one. It doesn't really matter about playoff standings. I guess it kind of will if 100 Thieves can crack into the top 1 or 2 for a first round
Uh
bye.
huh.
But it'll be exciting to see how those teams just play against each other. I mean, C9 had a bit of a shaky week going 1-1. I mean, it's really just losing to TSM that would worry any fan base. So I think if they can right the ship kind of against 100 Thieves, and likewise, if 100 Thieves can continue their win streak against C9, both teams feel like they'd be in a good spot on the outcome of that game. Any Friday matches you're looking forward to besides that?
I'm taking a look at it now. I'm interested in the second match, FlyQuest versus Evil Geniuses. I'm looking forward to see if FlyQuest can keep their top 4 spot or whether they're going to fall to maybe 5th or 6th place after this weekend set of games. So that's going to be the first one that I'm interested in because Evil Geniuses is just one slot below them in the standings, and that will also give EG the chance to break into the top 4. And we'll get to see, we'll look back on this and say, well, how did they do across the whole split, given that they had a rocky start, but they still ended up. Will they end up finishing top 4 still? That will be to come.
Yeah, good call. I do realize that I said all that about the C900 Thieves, and that's on Saturday, so I was clearly looking at the wrong day.
Oh, that's all good. Let's
Um,
do Saturday now, if anything. Um, CLG versus TSM, the rematch.
True. The El Crapico, El Trashico, what did they call it last time? El
Yeah,
Asico,
I think
maybe
it's
that's all you
Asico.
need to
Yeah.
say. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I don't know. That'll be exciting. I think, the only thing that I want to say about the TSM games this weekend is just if we can see, I don't know, before last week there was somebody who like made a Reddit post about the only way that they can win is or get 6th like in the playoffs is if they win out and all these other things happen and then they will like secure the 6th spot solely, right? And then like it hinged upon EG losing every single game and they instantly won a game the next day. So it was like, well, that's doomed. But this week, I think there's still a chance, and the only way it can happen is if C9 wins all their or TSM wins all their games, and EG or it's like EG and Golden Guardians have a matchup on Saturday. So like those 2 teams that are currently tied for that 5th or 6th spot, like one of them has to be at 8 wins, right? So whoever loses that match, and then Dignitas has to lose all of their games, and then if TSM wins all of their games, there'll be a three-way tie, and then in the three-way tie, there has to be like a tiebreaker playoff. So TSM has to win two of those tiebreaker games to go and make the last spot. And then there's also the scenario where like CLG can win out all their games, or win out two of their games. So then there's like a four-way tie. And then if they do that, then the TSM would also have a way into the playoffs. So like I'm only holding out like all of those like trash tier teams. I just need to see how they play out so we can see if there's some wild miracle scenario where TSM actually makes playoffs.
Yeah, super duper shenanigans that have to go on. How about the last day, Sunday's games? Any ones that you're looking forward to there?
I think that I kind of want to see how FlyQuest and C9 match up.
Okay.
Like that feels a lot like a good, like I don't know. FlyQuest has this weird vibe about them, about like they'll sometimes just play really well and beat teams like TL, and sometimes they just like don't look that good. You know, like maybe it's like an individual thing. You know, like Kumo gets bodied, and you know someone can just take over the game, or I don't know. Just there's just times where they make plays that don't work out right, and then they just lose. But they're, like we said, they're one of only four teams with a winning record. They're technically in the top half of the league. Like I think that if they can prove that they can beat, you know, a team like C9 too, then like that's a hype matchup to see.
Good pick. I'm also interested in Evil Genius's game versus Counterlogic Gaming. I want to see if CLG can beat EG, and that could have a really strong effect on the standings as well. So I think that's going to be a pretty important game to watch in this weekend.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for really for all the talk about like what miracle scenarios TSM or like Immortals somehow make their way into the playoffs, like the real kicker here of a like a dream scenario is that CLG like has a good shot at making one of those lower spots. Like they're 2 games behind the like clump of three right now that are tied for fifth. But they play against Immortals and TSM and EG this week, which are all pretty winnable games. And I think if they, you know, like you take the Immortals and TSM games as like almost guaranteed, like should be guaranteed wins if you're talking about a playoff team. And then it's just that EG game that would come down to like probably EG would be at like likely at a spot where they could lose this game and be out of playoffs, and CLG would be in, or it'd end up at some tiebreaker or something like
Ooh,
that.
that'd be pretty crazy. I think that would be pretty crazy if EG do not end up in playoffs, especially after their start at the lock-in tournament, and then just really all of the hype that was poured into them over this spring split. And I feel like that would be a pretty disappointing end to their run so far.
Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely agree. I think, I mean, that part I think is definitely unlikely. EG has similarly a soft schedule. Like they play against FlyQuest Immortals and then that CLG game.
Yeah,
So or is that right? Did I read something right? They play FlyQuest Golden Guardians in that CLG game. So I think they have like
nothing impossible either.
yeah, nothing impossible, and they only need like 1 or 2 wins, and I think they've pretty much secured a spot. So like it's only the disaster scenario for them where they go 0-2 on Friday, Saturday, and then go into that match against CLG and are staring death in the face.
For sure. Anything else for this next set of 3 days of games?
No, just excited for Super Week. I think that's all we got at this point. I think is to see how the playoffs end up shaking out.
Sweet. I think it's, one last thing before we wrap up this episode. I think it's been pretty weird that LEC has just not been on for the past couple of weeks. Like, they're taking a super big break between the end of the split and playoffs taking place. And I'm going to assume that it's not that much gameplay difference, like maybe 2 patches and the point, the B patch as well. So I guess not too much is going to
Hmm.
change from then to now, or whenever the next time that they'll start playing. I just thought that it's kind of strange that like they've been off for a long time now.
Yeah, it is weird. I would say. I wonder. I think it might be. a stranger thing for them, I think, to have come off of like these streaks of just scrims. You know, I think usually like I guess it's probably different like going into stuff like Worlds where like all the teams kind of have this gap, but when you're the only region that's like not playing on stage and you're just doing these scrim games, there's like you probably have like your own like kind of scrim meta going on. Just like we see probably with Champions Queue, where you see a lot of champs that like show up in Champions Queue. You see a lot more Renata. You see a lot of the like melee, like hyper counter top lanes, like the Fiora or Aurelia, that kind of stuff, more often than you see it in LCS. I think that's probably what happens in scrims for LEC teams at this point. And if you don't have those stage games in between where you're kind of forced to play the like more meta stuff or like the Friday before you're like, okay, guys, we should play like what we're gonna play on stage today. You know, like none of that has to happen. So I'd wonder if there's gonna be like some weird picks that come out that are just like LEC scrim meta specific that creep into the opening matches for them this weekend.
Good talks. All right, I think that's about it for this episode here.
All right, dude. Anything you want to say for episode 50 though?
Ooh, 50. In my head, it's because we typically record once a week. 52 is the actual like marker, but we don't record. But like we have skipped on some stuff, so it's doesn't even matter for the year mark. So 50 is a cool number.
Yeah,
I will say, I have enjoyed it.
that's true. I've enjoyed it too. I mean, it's like right. I mean, it's like 50. We started at the beginning of lock-in last year, so it's kind of. I mean, we're already past the whole year, right?
Yeah,
Like,
true.
so 50, I feel like just feels like the yeah. We have a whole bunch of a catalog at this point, which is kind of cool.
Yep, that will always be under internet, and that you could look up, and that's how I sounded like back then, I guess.
True. Waiting for my balls to drop the second time so I can look back and see the difference.
Yeah. What about you, man? Number 50 of just on some weekday, we'll just sit down and hammer some League of
Chat
Legends.
about
Yeah, for
LCS.
an hour or
Yeah, chat
so.
about League. And it's definitely fun. It's always good just to, I mean, it's been such a weird time being at home all the time, from work and everything. Like, it's nice to just be able to talk to someone too, even if it wasn't about League. So thank you for that one.
There you go.
But yeah, it's always fun to play League and be able to talk about it with someone rather than just revel in losing in solo queue or something. So it's a good
Have you
time.
played any more placements since then?
No, I haven't,
Okay.
unfortunately. I've
Will you ever?
yeah, I've played a couple of flex games. I think I will. I really think I will. I let down. There was one buddy of mine who was trying to get me to like play ranked games with him because he was stuck in gold and like his plat. I think he had to do like 5 different plat promos
Oh man.
just to get out, and he was losing his mind over it. And like this guy usually like he's a pretty like calm kind of guy and would like I rarely get invites from him, but he would send me invites and just be like, "Please save me from this hell." And I was like, "Dude, I literally can't. I have not played any games, and it does not let me rank with you because it says like the rank disparity is messed up."
Uh-huh.
So I have to get ranked at least in case he needs help getting to diamond or something. So that's my plan.
That's a real homie. If I had to say. Okay, and that's going to be it for episode 50 of On the Hunt, a League of Legends podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on the service that you are listening to us on, if you haven't already. We'd appreciate it if you also give us a rating or hit the like button to show us some support. You can find us on YouTube as well as your podcast player of choice, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify and so forth. We'll see you all next week for another banger episode of On the Hunt.
TSM,
Oh,
TSM.
dude, it's been so long since TSM chants have happened. If you think about it.
I know, but this is our opportunity. They went 2-0. It's
Yeah.
happening.
Damn it.